So,
Man,
sorry. And so,
you can be burping
yeah,
like that when we
no,
start. Oh,
no, I'm not. That was much time. Are we off the record?
hey folks, welcome to Hobby Random Go. I'm Ryan.
Hi, Mike.
Hello, and
Howdy.
yeah, we're back for another of our bi-weekly podcast episodes. You
Or
know,
something like that.
yeah, something
Yep.
like that, right? So, we last time we rolled up on the big bot bash. How are you doing
hmm
on that?
Would you be surprised to know that I have done nothing?
Okay, well, I'm not surprised. We did give ourselves a wide berth, right? Like
Yeah.
I've been doing it all up here, but
One
today,
second.
oh, what's that?
I was like, let me reach into my bucket of excuses.
So like,
Yeah. And
I
I'll
I
say
did the
it's
same
because I have
thing.
family in town this week, and it was a pretty heavy week at work last week. So
Yeah,
some life changes happened, and I just needed to unplug from stuff for a while.
yeah, we both had a pretty heavy
Yeah.
week, you know.
Uh
So
huh.
like, I hadn't. I mean, I'd been thinking about it a lot, and today I finally gathered all the things I thought about. Like all my bits that I rummaged in my head. I just basically
hmm
emptied my closet full of stuff I hadn't opened in like years and got a bunch of bits. I have stuff going. So I'm pretty excited, but I hadn't put it together. I planned on putting it together, but like I'm also wanting to record it. So then I get in my head about planning everything you know, and I ended up
Not
not
this.
doing it.
No, don't do that. Don't.
Well, I want to make a video of it. It's gonna be a fun project.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Oh well.
So, but like, have you thought more of it, or did you gather any more
I
stuff?
did, and in quality preparation style, I left my iPad downstairs. But I really what I did is I just took a picture and
Yeah.
then I dropped it on dropped it into Procreate. So I've just been sketching over the top of it and then adding, just goofing around. Um, I theoretically should have some time this weekend to work on it because we're going out to the ranch with the boys and my father-in-law to go fishing and kind of get away from the city for a bit. So I'll have some time hopefully to do some sketching out there because it's gonna be a
Nice.
nice lazy weekend.
Random thumbs up. No. See, I had all the ideas, and then
hmm
going through my actual bits and seeing what would
Yeah.
fit, like the things I thought would fit, did or did not. But some of
hmm
them I got some even cooler ideas. So I'm pretty excited. I'm gonna be working on it this weekend as well. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be doing the assembly. Like the assembly part's the part I hate the most. Like it's fun to put it all together, but like doing all the drilling, all the cleaning up, and then like things not working
Yeah.
out, it's like painting's a
Yeah.
lot easier.
That's not your wheelhouse.
Well, like I like doing it. It's just a lot of work. The modeling part is probably the most
Painting,
intensive.
painting is a lot of work too. It's equally time consuming.
Yeah,
It is the application of a skill set. It's just one that you're far more comfortable with.
for sure, for sure, for sure. Like, so other than that, you did you have any other projects you're working on? How's your RC stuff coming?
Oh, well,
Oh,
would you be surprised to know that I have not done anything on that either?
man.
So,
What I thought you said it had to be trail worthy.
yeah, it's got to be. Oh, dude, I don't leave till Wednesday. What are you talking about? So,
Study best before the test.
yes. So, no, I got this thing. It should be good to go. I have to give it a good wipe down. There's some paint that I got to touch up on the rockers, just some scratches, and then the rear bumper
Did you
is a
have
little loose.
tire thingies for the where the holes are?
These guys
No, on the side by the tire, the wheel well, like there's holes. Is that supposed to be there?
for the fender flares.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The fender flares.
Yeah,
I totally
yeah.
knew that.
I just didn't put them on.
I car
You
stuff.
car.
I'm Fast and
Um,
Furious.
you Fast and Furious. I had the option to put it on, and then I left them off, and then I just weathered the holes to make it look like they were so rusty that they had to take the fender flares off.
Hmm.
So, actually, I know, spoilers. We had a potential topic, but I wasn't even thinking about it. But this is a good example of what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Like this project was a good example of what I wanted to talk about today with the topic.
All right.
So, I am cleaning and removing my little inner tubes and all my accessories and getting the dust off of them and gluing all this stuff down so that it doesn't rattle out
Hmm.
whenever I'm on the trails. Oh no, this is
I
the
was just
busted light.
thinking, like, I see those things that I think, like, when I see a dollhouse, I'm like, that's so cute. It's so cute. And then I started
Uh,
thinking, everything we tend to do is in smaller scale. Do we secretly want to be giants?
that's what it is.
That's
Um,
exactly what it is.
well, I mean, this specifically, I grew up doing RC stuff, and then in the RC world, this is scale crawlers, and then you say dollhouse. These are called dollhouse trucks, um, because they're not meant to go fast. They're not bashers. They don't go off ramps. They don't do anything like that. But they're supposed to look as real as possible
Hmm.
and be as scale as possible and delicate. And so the whole point is to drive them slowly and take pictures and try to force perspective and all that.
Well,
So,
it's done really well. I
but
mean, I know that you built it a while ago, but it's
yeah, it's
impressive.
been a couple years at this
See,
point.
and like that's what it perplexes me because I only paint miniatures really, and so it's not intended to go in the outdoors and possibly get
Yeah.
banged up. Like,
Oh,
is
dude, this
everything
thing is like,
varnished?
yeah,
Like, how do you
it's got
seal
a
it?
couple layers of dull coat. It's got
Adult?
dull coat.
Okay, okay.
It's dull coat.
Man,
And then, oh man,
it's funny
that's
because I
what am I
probably
doing?
have applicable skills to do RC, but I don't ever want to apply it to like just thinking of like decaling it and keeping it in scale. I'm like, nah, I want to build a robot.
Well, I mean, you can build a robot. I mean, you just the scale is not the hard.
I feel like the scale would be the hard thing. I don't even understand like American units,
Well, I mean,
freedom units.
again, you would probably not be surprised to learn that I made a spreadsheet that I can plug in the real world dimensions and it spits it out for me. So I don't have to do the napkin math all the time. And then, yeah, you just kind of take it from there.
Yeah.
Um, One piece at a time. And, oftentimes these builds will start with a story and then everything is in service to the story and all that.
So
And so
this
this
one's
build
like
took
it's like going camping, going kayaking.
we can talk about it if you want to get into the topic, but
Sure. Yeah.
or you can. What have you been working on? What's in your pipeline?
So, well, okay. So
Maybe.
I've been working like one. I've been painting Rogue on stream. Been having a good
Yep.
time figuring out yellows all over again. I hadn't painted
Oh yeah.
a bright yellow in a very long time, and
Uh
I forgot how painful making those layers opaque. What are you looking for?
huh. I'm looking for my paper towels, and I think someone stole them.
If only they
And
were organized.
they should be right here ish, and they are not. And so now I'm irritated. So
So yeah, I've been
yeah,
trying
keep
to.
talking.
I forgot how difficult, or at least time consuming, painting opaque yellow like a bright yellow is. But been having a lot of fun on the stream painting that.
Cool.
But outside of that, like I had a couple questions for you for the Big Bot Bash. So,
Okay.
how would you tackle tubing? Like
How do you mean?
bending tubing. Like so one of the things I'm going to do is connect tubes, and I don't want to use like guitar string because that looks like cable. I want it to look like tubes for liquid. So like one of
Okay.
the ideas like and I need to bend it and move it around, but I feel like if I
Mm-hmm.
use green stuff, I'm going to pinch it or it's not going to look, like an actual hose. It's going to look like I made putty and turned it into a snake. So like
Okay.
the only other idea I had is like I have plastic rods like from what is that the
Yeah. I
you know
mean, drinking straws.
yeah, but
You
like
can use
how do you
drinking
make
straws.
those bend? Like an S
Um,
curve or something.
well, as with all things, it depends. Um, you can use heat,
Okay.
uh, and depending on the plastic. So, like, if you use like the evergreen, it's like plastic card, but it's a tube.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, you can get that warm, like get you a heat gun,
yeah.
or if you are very careful, you can use a cigarette lighter or like a creme brulee torch.
Okay, because I have a heat
Very
gun,
careful.
but I didn't
Yeah.
know if I heated up a hollow tube from say evergreen.
Hmm.
If you bend it, will it bend like a
You
hose?
gotta move
Will it
slow.
pinch? Oh, okay, so slow. All
Buckling
right.
is always going to be a concern. Um,
Buckling, that's the term. Yeah.
yeah. So I've had success bending metal tube and some plastic tubes by putting like sand inside it, depending on how big the tube diameter is. If you put like basically what you do is you put something that's not necessarily heat reactive inside the tube,
So it
so that
keeps
when
it
you
from
heat the plastic
crimping.
up,
Okay.
yes, you're essentially make it solid so
Yeah.
that you can bend
But
it.
for something that's small, I think sand would be a
Yeah,
little. No, actually,
yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
and go
Yeah.
slow.
Yeah.
Just go slow.
Okay.
Um,
Because I didn't want the crimping. I didn't want the buckling. Like,
how tight of a diameter are you looking at?
I really wanted it small. So that's the other thing. With a solid rod that's plastic, would it have the same issues? Like, could I just heat that up?
You you might have more luck. You really might want to just do it out of green stuff.
Yeah, but I feel like I'm not going to make it even. I feel like I'm gonna accidentally pinch it, or that while it's curing, like I'll adjust it and then it'll droop while it's curing or something, or it won't like attach properly. Because I've never done hosing from grain stuff, like without
Do you have old charger cables?
none that I could really use, and those are a little thicker than I want.
Oh, you want thinner than this?
Yeah, yeah, to be in scale.
Man,
Yeah,
you're
because
getting into
like
green stuff.
one of the ideas I have.
Or you could get you some sprue.
Mm-hmm. Like round sprue.
Yeah, so one thing we would do to make like radio antennas and whips for scale tanks and things like that is you find something that's the diameter that you want to bend. Why did I pick the clear one? Find something that's the diameter that you want to bend it around.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's say we wanted the diameter to be the bend to be the diameter of this pen. Well, then you could take your sprue, cut it, get your heat gun, and stretch it ever so slightly and start to work it around.
Okay. Here's another
So if you're
question
working
then
with,
with that heat
Mhm.
gun. So I had this issue when I did the clear acrylic rods for my lightnings.
Yeah.
How do you hold a heat gun while also uh, holding something with two hands?
Have you? Here's a question that I know that you're going to laugh at me about. Have you ever been around anybody or seen people blow glass?
Yeah, there's two people.
No, 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 like
Like
small
one person's
glass.
doing this and the other guy's like,
Yeah. So what they do is they set a butane torch up and they mount it to their desktop, and then they have a
okay,
small tube for like neon signs and stuff like that. And then the tube is in the they blow into the tube and it keeps
Okay.
the
Well, yeah,
blast from.
because
You can do
that's
the same thing with your heat gun. My heat gun is downstairs in the garage.
everything's
Um,
downstairs. Your paper
I'm
towels
really mad at
downstairs.
that. My paper towels are downstairs.
But okay. So then basically
We may
set up a sort of
we're gonna have to
vice.
pause and transition so that I can go get my paper towels and so I can
You
finish
want to
cleaning this up.
pause? Let's pause.
No, no, we can do
No?
it.
Well,
Yeah,
now I'm
pause,
gonna. We're pausing.
pause.
Pause. Hey, there we go. It's like you never left.
Anyway,
Which, while you were gone, I also got my sheet styrene tubes. So
okay,
I have some small ones that are hollow,
okay,
and some of them look like they've already bent. Don't know how that happened. So I guess it can't be too hard to bend them with the heat gun.
no,
Yeah,
hmm,
did you just lick it and
yeah,
you are disgust. First your brush, now you're gonna have your DNA all over your dollhouse car.
dude. I have small children. Do you think I care about germs anymore?
Everything's sticky.
Everything, everything is sticky, and I hate
Oh.
that.
Okay,
It's a
so
problem for me.
so I think
Now you
yeah,
go.
I think I can bend this pretty easily
Okay,
with a heat gun.
okay.
But
Yeah,
you were gonna get something else too.
got some
Oh, we were
water.
talking about the vice.
Yeah, so either most heat guns,
Say
or rather, the heat guns that I have worked with, um, have a flat back because they're a pistol grip,
yeah.
and so they have a flat back that lets you point up. And so you just rest it on your desktop, and then um, for like a little extra insurance, I will then use a like a C clamp or something like that to affix it onto the table, so or the work surface, that I know that I won't accidentally bump it or anything like that, right?
Okay.
Because the last thing you want to do is bump it, and now you've got a hot piece of metal that's the nozzle heat gun falling
Yeah.
randomly on you or whatever. Plus, it just makes a nice. If it's stable, then you can raise and lower and pull and work above the heat, and you don't have to worry about pulling the gun in and out. You pull the work in and out. So just makes it easier to manage.
Okay.
But
Again,
like I do that
how are
for
you
like,
affixing it?
so I just rest it
You just rest
on the
it?
tabletop, and then I'll use like a C clamp or like
That's
the
right.
quick
Okay.
grip clamps, and that's more just to make it more stable. So
Okay.
that's all.
Well, then that helps out because I was I don't want to use green stuff for tubing. Like because one of the ideas I have is I'm going to have
Huh?
a oil drum or a barrel and I
Mm-hmm.
want the hoses to connect to stuff cuz I have a pretty good idea of what I want to do. And so the other question I had is how would you bury a barrel in the ground like so that it's like cut off and it's like angled up at like say 45 degrees and how would you make it make sense that it still has liquid because I'm gonna cut it in half
Like
at 45
you
degree
want
angle.
you want the top of the barrel to be open
Well,
so you
not
can see the
not
liquid.
open, but I want liquid coming out of it, like because it's got a little thing at the top for like that you would normally open for like a hose, and I want
Mm-hmm.
that to leak out stuff. So like, how would
So
you
if you
have a
want,
half buried one that makes sense?
well, I mean, so if okay, so If it's going to leak out, that means that wherever it's leaking out from is the, let's see. Thinking pictures, and I said I wasn't going to sketch this time, but I'm going to sketch like this.
Okay,
So if you've got your
that's
Papa Ben's training place, so if you've got your barrel that's 45 degrees,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
45-degree barrel.
exactly what I'm thinking.
So in the real world, in real life, that means the liquid has found some sort of level,
Uh huh.
right? So that means one, you want to make sure that if you want the coming out the little spigot, that means the
It has
spigot
to
has to be
be
on the low,
lower.
has to be on the low side.
Okay.
Or if you have like bullet holes
Bullet
or a
holes is the other thing I was
puncture
thinking
or
of.
whatever, just know that like, if you have holes, that it's going to leak down, leak down, leak down. But like, it's gonna,
It's got to be lower than the water level line. The
yes.
other thing like the thing that I was having trouble with is how do I make it make sense that it's like because what that line you drew, that's my base level, right?
Of the water.
No, like the first line
Oh,
you drew, the floor line. If that's the floor line of my
hmm
base,
hmm
how do I make it make sense that it's buried underneath, like the ground below the base, and still has liquid in it? Because it's one when it's just debris and it's empty and it's rusted out. It could be crushed or whatever. But for something that still had liquid in it, I would think it's
it can still
fresh.
be dented. Well, not necessarily.
No? Okay.
Um, you can always, I mean, the barrel can be dented. So, like, again, tell the story, right? So, what was the barrel before? Did it get knocked over? Did it get,
Yeah,
was
my
it
initial thought was like rubble around it to hide the
okay?
the seam, right?
So, yeah. So, well, I guess what I'm saying is like, was it standing up and then something fell over and then canted it? Was it
Okay.
knocked over because like a big vehicle and it pushed it over a little bit? Was it in really soft ground and it
Oh, okay,
slowly
okay.
tilted over time? Because if it something fell on it, well then you're going to want the rubble that's leaned up against it that pushed it.
To be above it or like on
Yeah,
top of it.
or on either side, like it
Okay.
hit the barrel and it broke and it scattered around it. If it was really soft ground, well then you can have show it sunk and maybe have like tire tracks or something else that you can tell like went past it and pushed it over. Um,
Okay.
like so it's like what would make it fall over, right? Or or like let's say it was debris that washed down in a flood and it settled however, well then
Okay.
it's gonna be like half buried in silt and everything else, right? So you need to figure out. So like what the end result needs to look like as far as the blocking of
Yeah.
it. So then tell a story that got it to there,
Well, I like your idea of a
and then let that.
building part or a beam or something fell on it. Like that
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense. Because
it
I
could be
just knew
anything.
I needed an elevating point to stand
Yeah.
on, but I needed a way to make it make sense other than just
Yes.
putting a barrel there. So
Yes.
those were the two questions I was gonna bring up in this session was like I'm having issues problem solving that part. So
hmm
I like that. That's some good stuff. Man, I'm gonna get working on it this weekend for sure.
For sure.
For sure this
This
weekend.
time,
Yeah.
go ahead and come on, Charlie Brown, kick that football.
Oh man. So I guess that's a good segue to our topic because you had it fresh in your head
I
of
did.
what today's topic that we wanted to talk about. So I put it down really quick as to like I wanted to talk about when we were talking last time. It really made me start thinking of like when I first got into the hobby and like to where we're at now, where we can problem solve with each other. But when we first started off, we may have or may not have had other people to bounce ideas off of. It would have just been us doing dumb ideas that did or didn't work. So,
hmm
the topic for today I wanted to bring up was what were things that we learned as beginners in our hobby that we could
Hmm.
share with other people who are beginning in their hobby. Like me personally, I'm gonna probably put it a lot into the context of like miniature painting, but like
Hmm.
any hobby that we started, because there's gonna be a lot of similar through lines, as well as like advice we'd give to early adopters of hobbies and any early revelations experiences. So, what are your
Hmm.
thoughts on that?
Well, as a hobby collector, I have to. So when it comes to like hobby stuff like this, um, I definitely had a leg up because I was raised with it.
Yeah,
So there wasn't necessarily a so like beginner hobbying. I was shown
yeah, you had a
like
guide.
I was raised in hobby shops. I was raised in RC cars. I was raised with RC boats and planes and scale modeling and dioramas and making school projects and all that.
Hmm.
And so, I don't know that I would necessarily talk about, how I learned how to hold a brush or
Yeah,
learning new mediums and things like that. I think for me, the larger piece is more kind of like what I was talking about earlier is, what's the why? I'm a big fan of research. I both, it's a
you're a
big
spreadsheet guy.
I'm a deep dive guy. Like it doesn't matter what it is. And so when it comes, whether it's, talking about basing ideas and why is the barrel turned over, or, in the case of this truck where it started with an idea of, I knew I wanted to have a truck. I knew I wanted to have a Comanche, which was at the time, you don't feel, even now, you don't feel a lot of them. There's not necessarily a kit for it. Um, but I didn't want to just, I didn't want to just, build up a kit and throw some stuff on it and whatever. I wanted to tell a story, and I knew that if I came up with a good story or the why behind what I was doing, then it would lead me to a final product that made sense. And so,
Yeah,
like, if you can come up, and so regardless of the hobby, um, you're getting into miniature painting, awesome, because it's tiny little figures, and that's fascinating, or it piqued your interest. Painting's skill that you don't have and you're interested in, and like you've seen the results and all of that. As you're getting into it, and it starts turning into, where do I start? I don't know. Why are you wanting to get into it? If you're getting into it for the sake of the models, well, then that'll lead you to go find the coolest models. If you're getting into it for the sake of painting, well, then that will then lead you to, okay, if I'm getting into the painting side of things, oh, that'll lead me to look into paint. And
yeah,
then the
and
type of
techniques.
painting you
Yeah,
might want to do will then point you to the model you want. And that will lead you along the path. Does that make sense?
yeah. Actually,
Uh,
when as you were explaining that, it really brought into perspective like some of the stuff that I was gonna bring up in terms of when I first started. I would just like mimic what I'd seen,
mhm.
but
Yeah.
understand like what really helped me unlock it when you talk about finding out the why behind what you're doing. When when I first started painting, I would just paint stuff like in solid blocks and like mimic what I'd seen. But once I found out or started really looking into or thinking about the why behind why is it painted this way, and then running
Hmm.
into zenithal lighting is the majority of how you paint. Well, why is that?
Yeah.
And like
Why is
what?
that?
Yeah, and then what makes it work in zenithal painting, like starting with, I just used to think like at the top of your shapes you painted this, and the middle and the bottoms you painted like this, but then you're just filling in like how I used to take Spanish tests. Like I can't speak a lick of Spanish, but I know how to substitute the word. I want to learn the
Right.
language eventually, right? So
Yeah.
like once
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
started understanding zenithal lighting, then I started understanding how do you introduce new types of lighting, and like
Hmm.
it all starts with the why. And right now I'm playing a lot with that of like rim lighting and like reflective light and how to.
Hmm.
That's the stuff that really sells the advanced techniques of like object source lighting. Like when
Hmm.
I first started trying to learn object source lighting, I just mimicked what I would see. But when you really understand the why
Hmm.
of like why does light bounce this way,
Yeah.
and once I started understanding it, then I'd start to see other people's work and go, oh, they misused the concept. Like the thing that always stuck out to me for object source lighting was the source is the brightest source of light. So like when I see object source lighting done and everything's even with the source of the light, I'm like, that you missed it. All you have to do is take that source up a notch and then
Yep.
suddenly it sells it. But when it's all the same orange, you're not selling it. So like,
Correct.
yeah, that why behind it is pretty critical, and that's something I take for granted because I've been
Yeah.
asking about the why, all
Yeah.
up for a while now.
Yeah. And that's um, a couple of things you hit on there was, you know, one always like, and that's everything. I mean, why, what's the why? Two is, mimicking what you've seen. And oftentimes, we'll mimic stuff and we don't know the why, but you're repeating to find it. And so
Hmm.
and I think one of the things with when you're getting started with, regardless of the interest of the hobby, um, I think it's important to have a your goals, hobby goals are important, because
Like keeping them in the forefront.
yeah, keeping them in the forefront, and then oh, I forgot I got to make a new flag. Oh, that's what we're doing tonight.
Oh, buddy,
What?
you just squirreling flag, and then you just start doing flag. It's
Yeah,
like that
I do need to make
TikTok
this
meme.
one. Yeah, this won't take very long to finish wiping, and then we'll make a flag. I gotta have my orange flag for the canoe fell off the back at the last time I was on a
Oh,
trail run.
okay, okay, yeah.
I gotta make a little orange flag that
And
hangs off the back.
it goes upside down, right? Because
Yeah, it has
it's
to look.
yeah, it
So
dangles.
I gotta make it so it looks like gravity's holding it down, even though it's rigid.
Oh, it's cute.
Is it in a trailer?
But
No,
yeah,
it's not.
like honestly, like the
So
mimicking
okay,
part,
so
yeah, that's what I did for a very long time. Was
yeah,
just
it's
doing what
natural.
other people said, like three color layer up from the top down or whatever,
Hmm.
right?
Yep, yep. And then so I guess, and then another thing that I would say is it's good to have your hobby goals should fall on a spectrum of achievability. And so, um, OSL lighting again, or maybe sure, your immediate goals are I'm going to mimic zenithal top down lighting, right? And then master that. But then you're looking at like, what is it, Dave Wapple
Yeah,
and Angel and those guys, like Angel and all those guys. Um, like aim for this, but these guys, this is where you start, and so like
yeah.
your goals should fall on a spectrum and they should be achievable and measurable. So that way you have a way of like planting a flag and then looking back. Um, I know for me that's really important because it's very easy for me to get to like shooting for the moon and then
Getting
get
disappointed.
discouraged.
Yeah,
And if
yeah.
I can't be the best right away, which is something I struggle with being the best, like if I can't be the best right away, then I'm just not going to do it. Oh, I got to make more duct tape. I got to make more duct tape.
Mini duct
Um,
tape.
yeah, made, it's like,
What do you make it out of? Duct tape?
make mini duct tape rolls.
Oh, that's adorable. Do you actually keep duct tape rolls on your truck like that?
Well, see, he keeps having to tape his flag on because it keeps falling off,
Oh, look at this guy with his
and then
stories.
you patch it, and then sometimes it's left over from when you put the boat on the other way the last time.
Ladies, he's married. So,
Dude, so the story behind, well, so having those achievable, measurable goals, you know, that's why, and whether or not you are chasing views and likes on Instagram, I think
mhm.
Instagram is a good tool to use for documenting your hobby process so that you can look back and you can see the things, you can look back and see the things that you were proud of.
Yeah.
like you can look at your milestones and remember when you were proud of these milestones,
As well as
and
like
then
see how far you've come doing those same
yes,
exact techniques. Because I forgot who I was talking with, but I think of my minis as like photo albums. Like, as I am fairly proud of almost everything I try to paint. Like,
hmm
because they're time capsules as to
yeah,
this is where I was at that time when I tried, like my
yeah,
first time trying non-metallic metal, or the first time I tried
it's your
glazes. And then you
it's your
see,
yearbook photo.
yeah, and sometimes it's funny because I'll look back and I'm like, how did I do it better then than I do now? Like, did I veer too far
Hmm.
off? Like,
Right.
you know, so it's
That's
yeah.
another thing. That's another good point. It's really easy to get lost in the sauce,
Yeah,
and
like you're too
um,
close to it, you know?
yeah, or like what is it? I heard someone critiquing when you see like these extreme body modification, like plastic
Yeah.
surgery people, and it's like you look at them, and this isn't passing judgment; it's just an observation. Um, but you know, you sit there and you look and you go, how could anybody ever do
It's
blah, 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 blah,
gradually,
blah,
right?
right? And it's gradually, and because you don't have an end goal, you just go one more thing, one more thing, one more thing, one more thing, and then you by the time you get to here, it
You're
where
so
you
far
think
gone.
it's literally unrecognizable from where you
Yeah.
started.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot what models I was looking at recently where I'm like, my non-metallic metal has completely veered off from where I started. It's nothing like what I planned on like trying to learn. But like it kind of
Yeah.
went that way, and I was just looking at some older models when I was going through my bits, and
Hmm.
I was like, man, it's just in some ways I liked how I did it back then versus now. Like
Yeah.
I did a lot of it through airbrush, and I
Yeah.
feel like a
I
lot of
remember.
my airbrush skills have declined some in some
Yeah.
ways because like I'm editing my new video and I'm like, yeah, this thing, like that was the first time in a while I tried non-metallic metal through an airbrush, and it was rough, you know, because I got so
Oh
used to
yeah.
doing it. Like it was rough in terms of operating, like actually
Oh.
performing it. Like I'm so out of I only use my airbrush for priming now, like for the most part.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
because you know for the last I think 2 years I've been dedicating myself to do everything with a brush as much as I can. As time
Gotcha.
consuming as it can be, I feel like it's been the best tool for learning. Is like, no, let's take it back to basics. How would you do this if you didn't have an airbrush? And I found that I liked it so much more than using
Yeah.
an airbrush. But like, I mean, there's it's a tool now in my tool set, but like again though, I'll look at old non-metallic metal I did, and some of them I'm like, oh no, I like it a lot better with my brush. But there's a model or two where I'm like, oof, like I wish I could recreate that. I haven't exercised this skill in a very long time in like that small an area or that smooth a blend. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting to look back at your old work, but you know, some
Do you
folks,
ever
what's that?
do you ever worry about losing that? Like is that a fear of yours? Not.
No, I'm always like moving forward. Like I'm not one to go and look at my old stuff and think like and bash it like oh it was
Yeah.
crap. But like I also know like every model I tried to do something new.
My little dry bag.
Oh yeah. I thought it was a lunchbox. But like every model I try to do something I hadn't done before or touch up a new an older skill or something like that. So for me
Sure.
it's always ever onward. Like I'm always trying to learn something new or refine something that I'm less comfortable with. So
Sure.
like, you know, the stream on the stream the chat shows Rogue, you included, I think. And I'm like, "Great, thanks for all the browns and
Well,
yellows
so
and greens."
well, you know, I didn't have a chance to watch the stream yet, but did you did you what did you think of my idea for doing it at night so you could bring the cool
Oh,
blues in?
that's actually something I'm going to do. I'm going to either pull in this sort of greenish, like this foul green,
Okay.
or a light blue, like one of the two, as in and like with rim lighting. So like we were talking about, lighting before. Whenever I did Psylocke, I did the object source lighting from her
Hmm.
sword, and it's something I've been wanting to do because the people who paint Marvel's Zombicide, I think they're Big Child Creative. They do that a lot. They do a lot of rim lighting and like object source lighting that's like just coming off from outside of the base, like in the background. And I've been really wanting to do that so that I can introduce new colors that I wouldn't necessarily do on a model, like in their clothes or whatever. Like if I'm like, man, I could really use a hot orange or something to make everything pop, you can introduce it as rim lighting. So like when you mentioned do it at night, I'm like, ooh, I could have like light coming from the side, kind of like what they do in the Zombicide
Hmm.
models is they have rim lighting coming off. So I'm gonna probably do that with. It depends on like what color I choose is going to depend on how it looks at the end. Like if because she has green on her and the forest floor is all green, and I'm like, well, I don't want to introduce a light green if there's already
Right.
green everywhere. So
That
yeah, I'm
that's kind of
actually
what I
pumped
was
for that.
thinking.
Yeah, I could
Because then
introduce
you
a
could do
red,
like
like a glowy
you
red.
could a glowy red. You could do a which way? This way. Oh no! Fast, work fast. Okay.
Glue.
Yeah, this thing whenever it rattles around. So whenever we're on the trails, it turns into a running joke that um, these inner tubes are my like level. Like the skill is to not lose the tubes because they'll because they're hard plastic,
Yeah, and you
right?
can't you're not gluing those in there.
Well, I
Don't.
shouldn't.
No.
I'm gonna.
Don't glue those.
It's really annoying, and they don't come
Tie
out any other
them.
time.
Tie them.
So
You look at your kayak. It's got tiny little bungee cord
bungees.
on it. Yeah, cute little bungee cords. Use bungee cords. Don't glue it.
Um,
How is he
but
going
there's
to
not.
go down the river if it's glued to his truck?
Well, it's a fixed. You know.
So, but yeah, like yeah, I wanna play around with that lighting stuff a lot more. But
Yeah.
back to the we went off there a little bit. But in terms of like the why.
But setting it, yeah, the why. So the why, and then achievable spectrum goals. That way,
Mm-hmm.
if you lose motivation, if you ever like it's so hobby block, um, the returning to the why can help you move forward.
Mm-hmm.
If you get stuck or you don't know where to take something next, going coming back to your why will then oftentimes can help you get past the hobby block of it, the inspiration block. Um, what do I do next? What accessory do I need to do next? Um, it can act as a roadmap.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's that's what I'm getting at.
And
How
you're
about if
right
I glue
about
them together? I'm gonna glue
don't
them
no, don't
together.
glue them. Why?
This
That's
is fixed. It doesn't need to come out. That's
then
just
what was
it.
the
Like
point of
this is a
everything
step.
underneath that? I can't see a
Because
thing of it.
so I intentionally made it so that you can only see hints of it because that's how you add depth to the storytelling is that you don't show everything, but you allude to more.
No, I if you're gonna do that, you then only have one tube. I like seeing this stuff in there.
Well, you can still see it. You just
I
got to
can't
look. That
right here. I can't. I just see a donut.
yeah, but like when you're see, like it invites you to look in, and then you get little vignettes.
Fine. Don't fix it though. I just think you should tie it. I think you should tie it. You
Or
look
I
at
should
that.
just
You
get the
got
running
rope
joke.
right there. It's right there. You got
That was
rope.
that was gonna be my random website. I need to dig it up because you can find rope of different scales for scale um, shipbuilding.
What is it?
You know, like the
Boondock
USS
Saints.
Constitution and stuff
You
like
and your
that.
fucking rope.
Fucking rope. Anyway,
No, like yeah, I guess if you want. I prefer it to be loose.
I know. It's just driving this thing. It rattles around our loose shit. That's the
Yeah.
problem. So, but this is cleaned and wiped down enough.
Does it work?
Yeah. I should probably plug a battery in.
Oh
We can
my
do that.
god, the one thing you should check. You're gonna bring your toy to the party,
Ryan,
and then you're
Ryan,
gonna try to turn it on, and it won't work, and all the boys will make fun of you.
this is why we're friends. This is why you love me.
Oh my god. You're just like, I'm ready. Oh wait, I did everything else except check to see if it works. Cut to, uh-oh.
The cut to smoking model.
Yeah, just like, it's on fire.
All right. So I got batteries for that guy now.
Well, while you're testing that out, I guess I could go over.
Yeah.
It's funny. I put that topic down. I didn't even write a note in there.
I was about to say.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's like I like to prepare. So,
Nothing.
well, you did touch up on a lot of what I would tell people. Like, you know how you mentioned on the spectrum. One of my best pieces of advice for people is like really assess what level you're at, and then reach for one level higher than that. Like and like, when I mean assess is like, are you happy with how you do your base coats? Are you happy with how you do dry brushing or whatever? And it worries me when people really reach for these advanced techniques without laying down the foundations beforehand. And it's not like they can get there, but it goes back to, or they can't get there, but it goes back to like, you're setting yourself up for a higher chance of discouragement if you don't lay that foundation down. So that gets me worried about our paint session eventually, of like learning that comic book style.
Oh yeah.
That there's a lot of foundation that you need for that.
Dude, that's gonna be.
And I'm like, are you guys ready for blacklining? Are you ready for blacklining? That's a toughie.
Are you really ready for blacklining?
Yeah, like I can teach you the blocking. Like that's the easy part to like do solid opaque coats. But even then, I'm like, well, as a beginner painter, even learning how to do solid opaque coats can be difficult. People, I think, overlook that. So, for context, we have a little paint group, so to speak, and and our buddy is just getting into it, right?
Wait. So wait.
What?
So the radio works, and then I plug the battery in, plug in the receiver, turn it on. Okay, that means a beep, 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 it's on. Beep means it's connected.
I don't think we hear the beeps, but...
Oh, okay. So there's three beeps.
Maybe I didn't. Like I recently did a hearing test, and it says you can't.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you can't. So these are cool. So now we test steering. We have steering.
Power wheels.
And it's 4-wheel drive. So
all the wheels work. That's 4-wheel drive. iFast and Furious.
Yes, these are sweet. These are sweet rigs. I'm not gonna lie. They like.
So everything's working.
Everything's working. The headlights are working.
I was just about to ask, can you turn signal?
And I can turn them off. I don't have the turn signals, but if I leave this long enough without doing anything, it'll start blinking. The hazards will start flashing, and then I've got. Oh, there they go. Bloop.
Oh, your brake lights.
Bloop.
It's funny because it's so.
But what? When I go forward, they turn off. Brake lights, and then when I back up, reverse lights.
It's like fodder to make fun of it, but I can't because driving that thing is so awesome. I saw it on TikTok that I think it was a TikTok where people were kind of like joking about these grown adults on a camp.
Found in the woods.
Yeah, exactly that one. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, it looks it looks like you just stumbled on the dumbest thing ever, but put them in your hands. Like, just do that for a little bit. Like, slow crawl over these
Dude.
things, and
So
it's so fun.
we've got the tiny ones, right? Blink.
Yeah,
Also 4-wheel drive. These, when we bring these camping, like they never stop running because inevitably you find an oak tree or some
yeah, something
tree,
to
it
climb.
has a nice root ball around it,
Yeah.
and you, oh man, endless time. And then these have lights and everything else, and so
I know when I was driving that
yeah,
one, I was all nervous. I was like, I don't want to ruin this thing. So I drove the
you
other one mostly.
can't ruin them.
Yeah, you can. One,
Can't
it's
ruin
not a
them.
fixed.
I'll fix it
I don't want you to. But
anyway.
so yeah, like I lost my place now. But yeah, I think I was
Learning how
talking
to
about
blackline and assessing your own skills
yeah, like
and being
it's one of those
so
I'm
that's
nervous about it. Oh, the context. So we have a buddy who just got into miniature painting and
yes.
we taught him a few basics, right, in one
Mm-hmm.
session or so, and then we text about it every
Slap
once in a
chop.
while. Yeah, and then so he got interested in the comic book style of miniature painting and wants to dive into
Yeah,
that. And I can teach how from what I've seen or like what I can look at and assess how
this
to
guy.
do it, and
Yeah,
maybe modify a technique or two to make it a little easier. But at the end of the
yeah,
day, that's still tough, man. Doing that black lining is like
yeah.
around every panel around and then picking out like what parts to restrain and which parts
Mm-hmm.
to accent. Like
Yep.
it might be a little bit much because like it also really depends on opaque base coats.
Yeah, it really does.
Do you think it are you worried about it?
About what? Teaching them how to do it?
Yeah.
Uh, no. Um, tacky glue? No.
This is Mike's midsection.
Matte gel.
Matte gel.
Um, yeah, matte gel.
You fixing your hair?
It's like matte medium, but thicker.
What do you use that for?
I'm gonna show you. So I've got my mock-up, my little alligator clip on a alligator clips on skewers are the best.
I
Just
have
you can
what is it? Oh,
they are the best. Like I bought a whole bunch when I was doing Gundam.
I
When I was
have alligator clips on magnets,
there you go. I was flirting with them
and they're like
when I was
gooseneck.
doing
They
Gundam.
they bendy bend.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I use them for
So
airbrushing and stuff.
what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some matte medium or matte gel, and then this is gonna be the mock-up or the anchor point, and it's gonna act as the um, point of hanging eventually that the at the end of the canoe,
Oh, for your
right?
flag.
Yeah, I'm making my flag.
you
So
you could have started with that
sorry, making a flag. Um,
out of paper towel, no less.
yeah, so we're gonna take some paper towel, and then I'm gonna take some matte medium, matte gel, and water.
Hmm.
Get that thinned down.
See, one day I should be also doing something. Well, like how when we do hang out, I'm usually like painting or doing something, but I'm worried
Mm-hmm.
about not being able to concentrate. Like when I stream, I feel like it's too much. I usually only like to do one thing at a time.
That's fair.
I'm not a multitasker.
I'm not either. That's why I stopped talking. Uh, so I'll thin that out a little bit, and people are probably you don't thin out matte gel with water. Well, too late. Um, and then I will get this wet.
Is there a you don't thin matte gel community? Is it a
I'll
subreddit?
be I'll be matte gel. It's an acrylic medium, I believe.
Why wouldn't
And
you
so
thin it
as
down?
well, no,
Because the
there might be a
purpose is a
different
gel.
there might be a different solvent,
Oh, okay.
a better solvent. So, is this the paper towel I want to use? I mean, it's the only paper towel I got right now, so that's what I'm going to use. So, um, yeah. So then I'll get the paper towel wet, and then once it's wet, I will coat it in matte gel with my fingers, and then I will cut a piece off. I'll probably do a couple, two, three pieces. But the matte gel, what's nice about the matte gel is that it will soak into the paper towel, and then it kind of fills in those deeper pieces. And then,
Like the pitting.
yeah, it'll fill it in a little bit,
Oh, okay, so
and
it
then
ends up not being a textured, like it's not
as
obviously a paper towel.
as textured, it won't be
Okay.
as textured, but there'll still be some dots. But the other thing that it does is the matte gel will then infill the between the fibers of the paper towel, and that lets you know and acts as a primer. So then once it's
Hmm.
done, I can come back and paint it.
And will
And
it hold
then
its shape?
yes, it holds its shape.
Hmm.
So when we circle back around to the main topic of telling the story and stuff like that, I'll walk you through like how that thing was built and just the kind of story. But I did beach towels out of paper towels.
Oh.
Um,
And where did you learn how to do that, good sir?
take a guess. My
Your
dad.
father.
Yes.
Oh man. See, that's like the kind of crafting I'm not used to doing. Is
Yeah.
like
So
I don't know. I
that
always feel
was
like I have to get some sort of specialty item, like how Woodland Scenics is for like,
mhm.
diorama, and I always feel like I have to go through those channels, and I feel
Yeah.
like the when I craft from scratch in that manner,
Hmm.
it always disappoints me, as opposed to like if I just went and got the thing, like if I were to scratch build a lamppost, it'll never be as good as if I just went and bought Malifaux lampposts.
Yeah. And so that's a tricky. So well, I guess to complete my thought from before is well, two things. First thing, it'll never be as good as a Malifaux lamppost. So this kind of ties back into assess your own skill level.
Mm-hmm.
And it also kind of goes back to what I was talking about with last time with Bill making stuff and how he has developed an aesthetic that all of his stuff is of a piece. And so um, if you, as you develop your own style with crafting and all that, obviously you have your goals and the folks that you are mimicking or whatever, but you also have to kind of accept that you're not Dave Waffle. That's his name, right? Dave Waffle?
James.
James Waffle.
Sir
Dang.
James Wapple to you.
Dude, he is a freaking wizard.
Yeah.
James Waffle. Um, where did I get Dave? Anyway, doesn't matter. The point being, you're not going to be the people that you are mimicking and
Mm-hmm.
and setting your sights on. You can take a lot of elements from them, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, we're all the product of our inputs, and those guys have a style that they have
They've
developed and
also taken from
crafted.
others, right? Like from their
Yeah,
influences.
a
Like
hundred
me,
percent.
I totally get what you mean, because I feel like my whole style, quote unquote, is just aped off of like three people I like.
Yeah,
Uh one of them is Next Level Painting, my YouTube
yeah,
sensei, and Ancient Chinese Secret. And the other one is like Not Just Mecha, if you ever seen him.
yep.
And then
Uh,
like,
yes, but
yeah.
not recently.
Oh, like, and so, and Angel is the other one that I try to mimic, but he's like a machine. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, like every time I would share something, like when I make my videos, I feel like
Hmm.
all I'm doing is reiterating what somebody else showed me 10 years ago on a YouTube video, and I feel like I'm just cribbing off of them.
And that's
But
what they're doing.
yeah, exactly. And it's like we iterate off it no matter what, because we can't ever really mimic them perfectly.
No, again, I think I said this last time. We're all a summation of we're a summation of all of our inputs, for better or for worse.
Hmm.
So I guess the point that I was trying to get to is that it's okay if you're not the Malifaux lamppost. You're the Ryan's lamppost. It's the
Hmm.
Ryan lamppost. And so in the Ryan lamppost, is going to coordinate with the Ryan bases that are going to coordinate with the Ryan terrain that you make, and
Yeah.
it's all going to be of a piece, right? And so don't letting not letting yourself get hung up on it's not perfect, because the only person who's defining perfect is you,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
all
That
right,
kind of relates to like the thing that I think of like when I talk and tell like the stuff that I've learned from when I started my hobby journey of what
tiny scale ruler.
oh my god. Anyways, what I learned
So,
is I guess the I think about it all the time now, but and we've talked about this in offline, like of how I it's I think of it from my perspective now. I've been painting for 20 years or whatever, so sometimes I forget. But the main like I don't get hung up on is this a good or bad paint job anymore. Like because I pretty much know how to execute a decent paint job regardless of if it's new or not, you know, like if it's a new
yeah.
technique. So but when you first started off, when I first started off, not being able to take what's in my head and putting it on the model or on paper or whatever craft we were doing, it would
Hmm.
be a little frustrating. And
Yeah.
I think that everybody goes through that. But the main thing that you need to care about is, are you better than the last time you did that? Like, are you better than
Yeah.
you were yesterday? And like,
Yeah.
if you do that enough times, eventually, like, you wake up one day and you're a decent painter. And like,
Hmm.
it just happens. It doesn't happen overnight. Like, but once I let go of the mentality of like, do I care about this looking better than, you know, or as good as a white dwarf that I've seen? Like, once you let go of that part and just think, like, did I dry brush better? Did I blend it better? Like, did I, when I tried this new technique, first time's gonna suck. Like, you know, it's gonna suck. So, like, is it
Yep.
better than the last time? And so, the more I accepted that, you're gonna hang it.
So one by one. So these are at 1/10 scale.
Mm-hmm.
So about an inch is going to be about a foot ish. That math is sort of wrong, but little over an inch is a 1 foot. So
Yeah.
this is roughly a 10 by 18 inch square. So I'm going to
Yeah.
shake it, and then I will
Yeah.
hang it. And then once it's hung, then I can take my sculpting tools and my whatever, and I'll give it some proper shape. Because right now, the glue, you can't see that.
I can see it. Sort of. Yeah. Well, now, yeah.
Do a little twisting. So the so now we try to mimic gravity, and it's because like the matte gel is stiffer and it's holding the paper up, and so now we have to move it around
Hmm.
and recreate how the droop of if it was hanging. Because like in real life, if this is a limp rag, it would not be poking straight out. It's got to poke down. So we're going to
You and your tissue paper.
again not beating yourself up, setting reasonable expectations for yourself. So how do
Yeah.
you calibrate those expectations? So because it's a fine line between like you have to have a certain amount of self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so how do you ooh, that look good. Uh yeah, yeah. So how do you balance this idea? Like, so you have to be self-aware enough that you know that you need improvement,
Mm-hmm.
and then but on top, but like kind of in opposition of that, you have to be confident enough to be like, yeah, this is So like, where do you how do
Okay.
you dance that line? Does that make sense? What I'm
And
trying to
yeah,
say?
and it's different too because we've been painting for long enough.
Hmm.
where we are aware of what it is. So like if I were to think back to my days when I first started and things weren't going like how my head thought of it,
Swimmingly.
right? And so I would think that well, like with painting, the thing I can relate it to with painting, you can tell when you like something you've done, and then you can
Sure.
also tell when you like something somebody else has done. And so I would think that you'd want to keep both of those things in mind, and not like maybe the expert level, but even if they are the expert level, if like then you can
Yeah.
compare your work, like is it as solid or as smooth, and then keep working toward that goal, but staying focused on it.
Yeah.
I
I guess.
guess.
Well, let me back up and let me try this another way. So way back in studio days, one of the things that they tried to teach us, or that you had to learn, was how to self critique, right? And so, because it's very easy to get your blinders on and then get kind of, blindsided by an obvious flaw. So one of the things that you had, the skill they were trying to develop in us, was to be able to step away and separate yourself from the work, and then try to develop and look at. And this might be a larger topic, for a different day. But like, how do you know of a way? Like, have you done anything active to develop those skills,
Mm,
or have you noticed that you've gotten better at assessing?
okay.
Do you think, like,
Yeah.
because I mean that's one of those, like, if I'm new, one of the things that I would be afraid
It's
of, it
like
kind
you
of goes
don't
back.
know. You don't know.
You don't know,
You
you
don't
know,
know what to look for. You know.
right?
So, and that's why I guess because I've always been like you mentioned hobby goal, right? Like
Hmm.
I was always goal oriented when it came to my painting. So
Sure.
at first it was just putting colors on the model, like your first
Right.
day, just like gold, silver, whatever it is. But then I would see what other people can do, and then I think to myself, well, like what steps am I doing now? Why do I think it's different than what I see? And what do I think I need to do to get there? So like
Yeah.
if it's I think it was like Bobby Wong was an old school painter. I don't know if you remember him from White Dwarf, so I might get his name wrong. But he
No.
had these blood angels that were like buttery smooth, and this was back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So like I don't think it was done by airbrush, and it was just unreal to me at the time. So then I would obsess like, okay, well, he's got a really smooth red and it smoothly goes to like a dark red and a black or whatever. So what do I
Hmm.
need to do? I know how to paint red, but even my red doesn't look like his one part, like his Blood Angel's red. So how do I
Sure.
get that smoother? And that's whenever like somebody told me about thinning down your paints, and then I discovered like, oh, there's different thickness of paint, and like all I did was focus on like painting a solid red for a while. And then, a buddy of mine taught me his recipe of red. And I didn't even realize, like, this was before I learned about layering, like,
Hmm.
that he would go from, like, dark red, Blood Angel's red, then orange. And I'm like, wait, orange? That's crazy. So, like,
Right.
I accumulated all the knowledge trying to imitate red, like this Blood Angel's red that I saw. Now, granted, I
Yeah.
don't think I'll ever get to that point unless it's with an airbrush, but like still the goal was always for me to have like to imitate other people and just figure out the steps to get there.
Sure.
So I don't know if that's how everyone else thinks of it, but like when you mentioned having a hobby goal, I always had really specific goals that I set for
Yeah.
myself. So maybe
Yeah.
that's something that beginners can try to do is set specific goals that like you said are attainable. Like
And measurable. That's the
exactly.
other piece. Attainable and measurable.
And then like a timeline as well is another one
Yeah.
because it's just like any good KPI, attainable, measurable, like uh
Dang.
with the by a deadline or like a time to assess. What's that? Oh God.
It's the rust antiquing.
But like so as an example of what I do now and how I've always kind of done it before, the only difference
Mhm.
is I put a timetable to it. So like
Yeah,
right now, like I mentioned before, my goal is paint as much as I can with just a brush, because a few years back, I or not a few years, a while ago when I first got my airbrush, my goal then was I want to airbrush, so everything I do has to involve like some sort of airbrushing technique, like
sure.
as a major part of the paint job. Then when I did that for about 5 years, like I would reassess every year. Am I happy with how I paint with an airbrush? So
Yeah,
then I decided, okay, now that I'm happy with that, I used to think that I can't get these buttery smooth blends with a brush like I do with an airbrush, but then I'd see Flame On Miniatures like one day.
I do.
Yeah, and I thought the whole time he did it with an airbrush. Then I saw it and he does it with glazes, and I'm like, whoa, didn't know that was a thing. So then from that point on, I was like, I want to get to that point, or at least if you shoot for the moon, right? Like you get close to
Yeah,
there, you're fine. So he's always kind of been like, when I first saw his stuff, that's what set me off on this path of like, I'm only gonna paint like with a brush and try to get as smooth a blend as I can. And granted, it's not as smooth as that dude's because he's
dude.
he's ungodly, but still, like that's been the last 2 years for me of like learning glazes. I never did glazes before then, really, like before
Yeah.
2 or so years ago, and that's when I painted my Teary crew and for
Hmm.
Faux Down, and that's the first time I ever did it. So like since then
Oh,
I've been
okay.
having so much fun doing it, but like it's been a journey, but that's the same sort of thing I've done with every technique is
Yeah,
like something will hit me. Like James Wapple was one where I'm like I'm going to use washes, different color washes. And then I'll try practicing
got
that
that.
for years. And every year from when I decide it, I check in like am I happy with it? Now,
Right.
that leads me to the other thing I was going to bring up, that the advice that I would give.
Hmm.
One thing I wish I did when I was younger, that once I started doing it, it really set me off to improving faster. You say measurable, like this
Hmm.
relates to that. I would have told myself at a young age, write everything down. Because I do that. I write everything
Man,
down now. Like
I say to do that, and I've been threatening to do that.
Notion. Like I love using Notion. I use my iPad Good Notes. But like
Hmm.
when I have ideas, I make a new Notion thing, like a subject or whatever. Like I have a table full of project ideas, like for videos, for hobby stuff. And so when
Hmm.
I get an idea out of nowhere, I go on my phone and just write it down in its specific place, so that by the time I get to that idea, I already have like 13, 14, 15 bullet points. So when we talked about the
Yeah.
bot bash, as soon as we were done, I wrote all those ideas in my Notion, and then every time throughout the last 2 weeks, I get an idea, I write it down. And so it's like
Cool.
story ideas and like all sorts of like modeling ideas. Could I possibly paint it this way? So if I did that when I was younger, that would have hit the measurable thing that you're talking about. Like
Yeah.
when you make revelations, when you make new paint recipes, write it down. I
Do
don't
you
like
do
doesn't matter.
debriefs?
What do you mean? What do you mean
Do
by
you
that?
do deep? So like you. So it sounds like you are. So well, pause. So this is the iron rusting set. So this is I think it's an acrylic base. It's water cleanup. It's got iron filings in it, and then you come in with an oxidizer, and then it rusts it. So that way you get rust effects. Um, pretty sweet. Uh,
I just paint it.
yeah, but so this is 1/10 scale. So
It's 1/10 scale rust.
well, it you can paint stuff on, but the scale is so large that you can get away with having
Ah,
like actual.
actual rust.
Yeah, it's like it's chunky.
Yeah. But what were you saying? Do I debrief? What do you mean by that?
Debrief,
Yeah, but
like a post mortem. So you have some ideas, you wrote down your mixes and things like that, and then once you're done, how did it turn out? Right?
Okay,
So
yeah.
like, do you only write down your successes so you can repeat them,
No,
or do you also write down your failures and say, "Don't do this again,"
I keep
or
all of
next
my
time you do
notes,
this,
and so that way I know when I didn't include something. Like, so that way I can copy and paste that same idea for a relevant
yeah,
project. So, like, a good
gotcha,
example of that for my videos, I'll have different lines, different ideas that I end up cutting for one reason or another. I'll
yeah,
move it to a different portion of my Notion to show like
gotcha,
I use it for something else. So whenever I paint, it's easy for me to there's like two categories of like mess ups or debriefs, I guess you would say, that I do. Like there's stuff like I remember I painted on one stream a long time ago, uh, and there were so many things I wanted to fix. But if you give
yeah,
yourself a week or 2 weeks, by the time I put the brush down, I
yeah,
go back 2 weeks later, I can't remember any of that stuff, then it wasn't worth it. It's not something worth remembering. But if it's something that every time I look at it, I recall an issue, or I recall I wish I did this differently, or if it bugs me, then
yeah,
that's something worthy of keeping in mind for the next time. So like Psylocke, I painted a couple streams ago. Her face keeps bugging me. Well, now I
yeah,
fixed it with one quick thing. Like I looked at it long enough to know exactly how to fix it where I won't be bugged anymore. And on the last
yeah.
stream, I just put on a couple brush strokes of what I planned on doing, and then I'm like, oh, now she looks all right. Like now I don't
There
mind.
you go.
Like
Sweet.
some of them,
Yeah,
some of the notes, you're just too close to it, like we talked about earlier. But
yeah,
for the most part, like I can look at it and think like what worked and what didn't and why, because I either take notes or like I've practiced the technique enough where I can identify it. But for a beginner, I would say take notes. And it also helps you keep accountable to like a schedule or like moving forward. If you become in the habit of like you have a journal with a calendar in it and you're writing in there how many times you paint a week, like and what you want to paint on, you're planning out your projects and like you're getting them done, and it's just once you start seeing those X's in the calendar, it makes it a lot easier to keep that momentum up. So that's
yeah,
one piece of advice I wish I would have given myself as a younger hobbyist.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good call.
Yeah, I just like taking a lot of like notes, or at least having some structure to wrangling ideas. Because if we
Yeah,
don't, they're so nebulous, in your head. Like when you just think of your projects and your ideas only in your head, you lose a lot. Like, and it's all
yeah,
just nebulous, and there's no real plan. You just sound like a crazy person if you were to start working on it. But
yeah.
like,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, and it's one of those like if you don't have an idea of where you're going or how you're going to get there, you don't really have a way of guaranteeing that you're going to reach your goal. And if you don't reach your goal, you don't have a way of avoiding the mistakes that you did that round.
hmm
So, now what am I doing? Rinse, 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 rinse. So,
well, I mean,
yeah,
there's plenty of stuff out there for like beginner painters, but I think of uh like we talked about the main ones of like just don't be harsh on yourself, but give yourself something
yeah,
attainable. Like you said, we especially on Instagram or on the internet, we see these amazing ungodly painters. Those
yep,
are those are good to aspire to, and you may get
yeah,
there, but it's not going to happen overnight, right? Like you're going to have to keep working at it, and
yeah.
don't get
So
discouraged from that.
this thought just popped into my noggin.
What's up?
Um, so it talking social media and talking people you see on Instagram and stuff like that. Um, do you think so? If you compare hobby we call them hobby influencers because that's what they are,
Hmm.
right? Um, if you compared them to like, oh shit, okay, if you compared them to fitness influencers, right? Um, Nobody is gonna watch a fitness influencer. Well, you would think that
Like one who
you
isn't
know,
fit.
no, 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 no. You're watching a fitness influencer with crazy abs and is
Oh,
shredded. No one is gonna think that they can just walk into a gym and get shredded immediately, right? And that's because everybody, reasonable people,
I was about to say
and
I think
so
that, but that's why I don't go to the gym. I don't want my wife to get intimidated by my body.
we all have our burdens, Ryan, and
But I
but
get
I
what
guess
I get where you're
so.
going.
So where
Yeah.
I'm going with it, so where I'm going with this is that we all know, reasonable people understand that those bodies and those physiques are the result of years of hard work and strict dieting and whatever. And I don't know
If it
that,
translates the same with painting.
yeah, because people are like, oh, I can do that, and then and they don't realize that it takes years of dedication and repetition and consistency and all of that. And so I think in the same way that you wouldn't start a fitness regimen in the hopes of losing 50 pounds and getting the best shape of your life and all of that and expect to do it in, a week or happen immediately. Like, I think it's very easy for people to assume that they can just pick up a paintbrush and do it or pick up
That's
and
a good
so
point. Yeah.
going back to setting those expectations, finding someone who is, and I've been on fitness stuff for a while now. And so finding someone who's closer to your journey, finding someone who isn't shredded but is on their own journey, and then helping,
Yeah.
seeing how they achieve success and all of that might be beneficial.
That's a good
So
point. Yeah.
anyway,
Because I mean I came
I just
up
think it's
with
easy to,
I came up with people who were of similar skill level at the time.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's easy to think like you look at these guys, like, because going back to that, like, assess your own skills, and you look at these guys that are the pinnacle of the hobby, of the
Mhm.
craft. You're not going to be those guys. In no world are you going to be those
It
guys,
reminds
especially
me, yeah,
on your
like
very first model.
it reminds me I've been talking with someone about paint jobs and somebody looks up to like my kind of painting and or somebody else's painting and they think like, "Oh my god, I'll never be that good." Or like, "You're the best," right? And then the first thing we think is like, "Oh no, you don't know of so and so."
You
Or
actually do not know the
yeah,
best. Let me
there's
introduce
a
you
whole
to
world of
the
these
best.
painters that I think I'm crap compared to these people, right? So
Yeah,
like uh everyone who I hear that so often is like, well, I'll never be able to paint that well. It's like, well, no. First my first thought is like, well, not with that attitude. But
right.
like it is one of those things that like 20 years ago I never thought I could never be that good in terms of like I always felt like if I worked at it long enough I could be good enough. But
Yeah,
like there are people out there who kind of give up on it because it seems unattainable. But like you said, it's like millions of steps over several attempts. Like
yeah.
so every time that you pick up a brush and try stuff out, you're eliminating one of those steps, and then eventually somebody's going to look at your stuff and
Hmm.
think, man, you're so good, you're like the best, and you'll be like, well, you're nothing like Ryan so far.
Right.
But yeah, like it's something that I think it's a fun developed skill that like I could have never imagined the stuff I do now even
Right.
10 years ago, right? So like yeah, it's just I hope that this kind of sinks in with people starting off in any hobby, really, and
Yeah.
with especially with that face. By the next time we record, do you think that you would have more work done on your bot?
Well, I'm gone next weekend, and then the weekend after that, it's my company party.
So you're just gonna crunch last minute? Well, I'm gonna try to have something like at least
Have
put
we?
together for
I'm sorry,
painting.
Ryan. Have we met?
Well, I was
Like
just gonna try to hold you
you
hobby
always
hostage, you know.
you always act surprised.
So
Do you want to hear the story? The why?
yes, yes, yes. Okay, so what's the why for the
Okay.
truck?
So I knew that I wanted. I enjoy Jeeps. I have a Jeep Cherokee, 99 Cherokee. I like the old six cylinders. I have a soft spot for the Cherokees and the Comanches, just because I think they don't get enough love. So I knew I wanted to do a Comanche truck. They don't really have a kit for this, and so I had to do a lot of kit bashing. But the thing is uh, oftentimes what you see is people will, and I have to be careful when I talk like this because I don't want it to sound like condescending or elitist because I don't mean it that way. But you get people who are excited about the hobby, and then you know it's scale crawling, and so then you can buy any number of scale accessories. I mean, they've got scale cargo nets and scale shovels and tiny little bit of everything,
Okay.
little chainsaws and stuff. But for me, what can happen if you're not careful is you buy you can fall into a trap of buying a bunch of scale bits that you all think are cool individually, and then you just put them on your rig, and it looks disjointed or unintentional. And so if we're going with this scale idea and selling the realism, what draws it together, one is if everything is in the same scale, which scale bits, scale is very fluid. The the industry standard they'll tell you that it's 1/10 scale. But really the models will run anywhere from 1/10 to 1/9,
Okay.
somewhere in there. I think this was actually closer to 1/9. Um, and so it just doesn't quite look right. Right. And so, and so, one, I wanted to make sure everything was right, like consistent across the scale. So it adds to the realism. Two, just like if you go out to your car right now, and you open it up, everything in your car is there for a reason.
And they're all
And
in
it
one
might
one
be,
scale.
yeah, they're all in one scale. But it's like, oh, you've got a Red Bull can that's half drank from whenever you picked up at the gas station. And, you left a jacket in there because it was kind of cold the other morning, but you never took it out. Like, and everything's in there for a reason, and it got there somehow for a reason. And then over time, or like, there's a theme, not necessarily a hard theme, but everything it's all tells a story. And so I wanted to come up with a story that would then dictate all the accessories that would then go on the truck. Um, I hadn't seen a canoe uh, that was the right size. You see a lot of canoes from like doll kits and Barbie sets, and but they're not quite right. They're a little too small,
Okay.
and so it makes the truck either makes the truck look big or it makes the canoe look tiny,
Okay.
right? And so I knew I wanted a canoe, and I knew I wanted a Comanche. And then I was like, okay, so why would a canoe be on a Comanche? So then I started like coming up with an idea. And I knew I didn't want to go a new look because I don't have the skill set to pull off a gloss coat fresh off the lot new look. I don't have that skill set yet. Um, and so I knew I was going to have to go weathered. So all right, cool. So canoe and weathered and a Comanche. They haven't made these since the early '90s. Um, and so I was like, okay, so where would those still be hanging around? So I came up with the idea of this would be the tow truck. Have you ever gone tubing or
No.
canoe rentals?
No.
So, so
I don't
down here
nature.
in South Gulf South Texas and then Louisiana, going tubing is a big thing, or going canoeing is a big thing. And so the canoe rental places will have a tow rig
Okay, wait. No,
that
I
pulls
have
a,
gone kayaking. I have kayak VR.
okay, kayak VR. Okay.
Yeah.
So the canoe rental places will have a tow rig that is responsible for pulling this trailer full of canoes back and forth from the put in spot to the spot where everybody pulls out. And that's just what they do. And so they tend to be ratty old trucks that have been beat up, you know, and so I figured it would give me enough cannon fodder or fodder for accessories and whatnot. So that's where we started. So I got my canoe. I made the rack out of brake line from a car, like car brake line, and then learned how to hold, no, braze, learned how to braze. And then kind of moving around the truck, if you go into the cab, so I made a bunch of brochures for the rental company. So like the idea is like the driver, which my dad made the driver, um, while he's waiting for people to pull out, his one of his jobs is to fold the brochures while he's waiting, and they're just waiting on the dash. As he gets them done, he just throws them on the dash. And then I scratched made a an ice chest. So that's his
Nice.
lunch. And then one of the beach towels. There's a beach towel in here. If you look in the cab, I put it over the seat, to cover the cracks in the vinyl. And it's just a towel that somebody left on the shore after they pulled out.
Hmm.
In the bed, I've got
See, that's why I don't want the tires in there. That looks cool.
more. So I've got more beach towels I made out of paper towels, like I did that flag. And then I picked up some 3D printed traffic cones, painted them orange, and then I made little life jackets out of green stuff or
Hmm.
Sculpey. And then I have a dry bag.
Oh,
Like
plenty of
you
stuff
always gotta
not
have a dry bag.
affixed.
Well, that's the battery cable.
No, the
Um,
cones. They move.
oh yeah, 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 yeah. And then so that's so again, it's like what would it feasibly what would that guy have? He'd have life jackets that he's just thrown in the back that he's got to take back to the rental trailer. He's got some orange cones that he would set out on the curb on the beach and say put here. I made a little take one brochure box that's mounted to the truck.
Oh,
So
nice.
like so he could he's parked next to the whatever, and you can take a brochure as you leave, so that way you have the information for renting next time. Um, and then the canoes. It's got I made the duct tape because that way he's always having to duct tape that stupid flag back on. Um, yeah. So, but it has a story, it has a theme, and it's driving it. And then I so SBG Scale Builders Guild is a YouTube channel that I
Hmm.
really enjoy. But I printed off the expired registration, and then like CCA is a coastal conservation group, and so I printed up, made a bunch of decals and printed them up to the
Yeah.
right size. LSU, he's got his LSU Tigers. So like at
Broken.
some point,
Yeah.
either he ran into something or somebody broke his rearview mirror and he had
That's
to tape
pretty
it back
neat.
on. And so, but the broken mirror that happened because I rolled this thing down the trail and it snapped the mirror. I was like, I can either fix it or I can just make it part of the story. And so
Yeah.
now I just make it part of the story and
Well, it's
add
similar
some duct tape.
to how miniature painters treat like their bases and
Yeah.
stuff.
And then
So
I
yeah,
made inner tubes. So it's canoeing and tubing. So those are just 3D printed little donuts. And then I added a valve stem and patches. So they hang out there.
pretty
And
neat
so
burrito.
it's all of a piece. It all tells a story. And then dad made the bungee cords from scratch. Um, and then when you do rope, the rope is tied to elastic on the inside of the canoe, so that way it keeps it taut. Because if it sags,
Ah,
it
yeah.
ruins the effect.
Man,
So
that's.
it's that kind of stuff. So you just
I
kind of
already have
think,
a tedious enough hobby. That seems even
yeah.
more
And then
tedious.
I needed easy access to batteries because like all this is bolted on. Usually the battery is held underneath the cab somewhere, or you'll lift up the hood or drop it out the back. But all this was scratch built. Like I started with the frame rails, and then everything else was piecemealed together. Like I did aftermarket for separated. shocks and coils, just like the real ones, and then leaf springs in the back, just like the real one. 3D printed the tailgate, and then all of this from like right here back is all 3D printed in scratch build. And then SNN, so on Instagram, I'm Styrene Neophyte is my hobby handle.
Oh,
And
okay, yeah.
yeah, so I made a stencil of SN Canoe Rentals. Um, so again, it's all of a piece and theme.
Nice.
Good stuff.
Man, that's too much.
But yeah, so you get the why, you let the story, and then anytime you're like, well, what else can I put on? I don't know. Well, what's the theme? What else would he have? What else would they do? And then
Yeah.
builds and builds and builds and builds.
Yeah, that I mean, that definitely translates to a lot of people who are just starting off, not just haphazardly doing stuff. Try to keep it to a theme.
Yeah.
Try to like
And there's
plan it
nothing
all
wrong
out.
with that.
No,
There's
yeah.
nothing wrong with it. My first one was covered in just random stuff that I thought looked cool. You know what? I had a great time driving that truck. It was awesome. And so that's not me trying to yuck someone's yum.
Yeah.
It's just like you said, it's you look at where you start
What are you
and then
doing
you see
now?
I'm looking for and I'm looking for styrene profiles.
That'll be it for tonight. Any plugs, anything you wanted to bring up before we head out?
Plugs wise, I'd say Dad's Instagram.
Okay.
Um, Old Son RC
Old
on
Sun
Instagram.
RC.
OLDSONRC
All right,
on Instagram.
folks, check it out.
Yep.
Look at the
Yep.
stuff his dad puts us to shame in every hobby.
It's annoying. It's so annoying.
All right,
But
folks.
anyway,
Well, that's it
cool.
for tonight. Y'all
Yep.
have a good one. Happy hobbying. See you later. Bye.
Bye.